Who's ready to win the day in sports? I know you are. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com, Monday through Friday, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Justin Fensterman, and let's break everything down from a fantasy sports perspective. Good afternoon, everybody, or morning if you're on the west side of town. My name is Justin Fensterman, and you are watching Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com here on the Elite Plus Network. Again, the Monday through Friday, always free for you and always getting you ready in any sport when it comes to winning. Ray Flowers hosts Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I take on the middle in Wednesdays. And for those that have hung out there, hey, good to see you all in the comment section already, ready to go in this pivotal week number 13 of your fantasy football season. But it's also, let's not forget as well, it is also Thanksgiving. So we're going to have a little bit of fun here because I love food. As you can tell, I'm not someone that really misses a meal. I love food, especially sides. I'm a big fan of sides. And as you always see, besides what's going on in sports, also everybody's debating what the best side is, what a true side dish is versus one that's just completely irrelevant, doesn't make sense. So for those out there going to have a little bit of fun, let me know in the comment section. We'll be looking at your questions as well. But favorite side dishes for Thanksgiving, because I'm someone that just loves those sides. Angelo, what's going on? Great to see you here in the chat. For Wednesdays, I do a half and half show, half football coverage, half NBA. I'm going to have on the fantasy Bosco, Rich Maletto from FantasyGuru.com. He's going to stop by, and we're going to talk about streamer options for Week 13. Now, unlike Week 12 and Week 14, we don't have a plethora of buys. We've got 0.0 buys. So streaming is going to be very interesting. We do, as you see, have some injuries, though, that we're going to have to watch out for. And I guess I'm kind of the injury guy when it comes to fantasy football at FantasyGuru.com. I also do a lot of NBA work. Going to talk about that monster 14-game slate, no NBA games on Thanksgiving Day. So we have just about every team in action. And of course, DraftKings splits up the slate. So they've got 11 and FanDuel has 14. So I'm going to talk about some strategies surrounding that as well and what's worked with betting. Going to talk about the NBA tools one last time as well, because these are really cool tools. They're accurate. They're working. I'm watching them. I'm studying them every single day. And for those out there that are starting to feel the blues that fantasy football is coming to an end, number one, you know what I always say, it only ends when we allow it to end. But the other thing is that there's more winning to be done. And that's why I'm trying to introduce all of you out there who we do baseball coverage as well with Ray Flowers, does a lot of baseball on this stream. But I can show you the basketball world and what we're dealing with and what we have to offer at FantasyGuru.com. And for those that still want to get involved here for the rest of the year in football, $99 DFS seasonal wagering. And we have a lot of activity constantly going on in our Discord room at FantasyGuru.com, whether it's the seasonal channel, the DFS, the Man's Cave, any of those. I do a lot in the NBA DFS and the NBA betting as well. We do watch-alongs. We're there watching the games with you because that's how it should be. That's why we're all in this together. That's why we're all part of the Elite Mafia, because we're hanging out and we're watching these games together. So you still get involved there for under $100, FantasyGuru.com. Join us today and then stay for the spring sports as well and the winter ones like the NBA. So let's talk about these games coming up, because this is a different week. We always have Thursday night football, but this time you've got 3 games. So before you stuff your faces with all of that turkey, because turkey's going to make you tired, make sure those lineups are set. And we're going to be watching. It's going to be interesting for someone like me because I am going to be traveling Thanksgiving morning. I'm going to be traveling early, but there are a lot of injuries we're going to be watching out for when it comes to practice for this day. For instance, Chicago and Detroit. And let's talk about that for a second. We've got the tandem of Sonic and Knuckles. Well, it looks like Sonic, rather Knuckles, is hurt. David Montgomery, I mean, he's dealing with that shoulder injury. He was limited in practice, as was Amon-Ra St. Brown yesterday. So we're going to have to see. It doesn't show panic just yet, but Detroit's not going to play their cards, and they're going to see how the health is of both of them. They don't need to fully practice in order to obviously be in. But David Montgomery is someone we're going to be watching out for. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, for all intents and purposes, Khalif Raymond, we've just found out, hit the IR. So he's out of the mix there anyway. So I actually have a team that has St. Brown, Jameson Williams, going to need them to perform against the Chicago Bears team. I also have a few shares of DeAndre Swift, who got vultured by Roschon Johnson last week. And it is so hard to run on Detroit. Now, because of Detroit's potent offense, you've got a lot of teams that are going to need to throw against them anyway. They are a hard team to run on, though. Let me tell you, a very hard team. And I tried to see if maybe there was a leak in their defense. For instance, letting up receptions and receiving yards to running backs. Also good at defending that. Rushing yards for quarterbacks. That's an area where we could consider. So I'm wondering if Caleb Williams is going to be running a little bit more than normal in this matchup just to keep Chicago moving down the field. Was very encouraging seeing DJ Moore and Keenan Allen have the games that they did. It showed life because this Chicago offense was starting to look lost, looking completely lost. And speaking of lost offenses, I'm going to ask Rich Maletto in a little bit about what he thinks of the Jacksonville Jaguars and who we can trust, if any, from this team. Maybe one, and that's it. Let you guess which one that is. But hard team to trust. We don't just ignore them. We look for the volume anyway. But if the volume's not there, then we can ignore it. But there are some teams at this point, late in the season, starting to think about their offseason. They don't care about your fantasy teams. This is where fantasy and reality NFL fork off, and they're not intersecting when it comes to the franchise's direction versus our fantasy team's focus, which is mainly on the offensive side. So that's where we're going to have to start to separate. And this Jaguars team going up against Houston, not going to be easy. But going back to Thursday, here's another issue we're going to have to watch out for. And I guess, does it really matter? Tommy DeVito dealing with an arm injury. He's questionable for the game against the Cowboys. CeeDee Lamb's been banged up, but he'll play. But now Drew Lock, because this is good because now for something like this with the Giants, you're looking for a spark. You're looking for anything. And for those that are in super flex leagues, if Drew Lock was out there, and you have the roster room, maybe you do pick him up, and maybe you do just keep him stashed there in case, hey, he does well. Let's say DeVito doesn't play, they go Lock. Does well against Cowboys. All right, well, let's see moving forward if he could get you that 12 to 15 points. So Cooper Rush versus Tommy DeVito or Drew Lock, that's going to be a fun one right there on Thanksgiving Day. Let me tell you, Giants versus the Cowboys. Can you flex some other games in, please? Miami, Green Bay. This one I'm pumped for. And this is the hardest one to stay up for because at this point, we've all eaten our turkey, the stuffing, we're all stuffed, we're all in our food comas. And here we have Miami looking a lot better going up against Green Bay, which I am very intrigued by. Injury in that one that we're going to have to watch out for. And to me, I would think that he is not going to play, but Romeo Dobbs, who landed on his head in the end zone last week, concussion out of the game. Yeah, that's going to be one where he's likely going to be out of the mix there. So Miami, Green Bay, I'm actually very excited to see. I want to see what Jordan Love can do against these Dolphins. But remember, even with Tyreek Hill is going to play as long as he can move that arm. So torn ligaments or not, Tyreek Hill is going to play. But someone that's definitely come on strong in this Dolphins offense, Jonnu Smith. Obviously, there is a rapport with him and Tua. He's not going away. Yeah, very encouraging to see Waddle have a big game. Jonnu Smith is not going away. Just remember that. Doubt he's out there on waivers, but we're going to talk streamers with Rich Maletto about that too. But we're not done. No, we're not done, because then on Friday, we've got Vegas and Kansas City. And here are some interesting injury tidbits for there. Run games for both teams. How healthy is Pacheco going to be? Can we have one more week of volume or somewhat volume Kareem Hunt? Does it matter because no teams are on bye? Did I drop Kareem Hunt for my team? I did not. I have him everywhere. And yes, we all went through it. I mean, Pappy Mans said to pick him up. Everyone was focused on Steele. We picked up Kareem Hunt. We waited a few weeks, and we've all benefited up to this point. So Pacheco, who's limited, I mean, does that say anything? We all thought, oh, he's going to be back last week. Did not happen. So now we're going to have to see with Pacheco if he's going to be in on Friday's game. You're not done. So for those that are dealing with that situation, and for those that are dealing with Kareem Hunt, you're working on Friday. 3 o'clock game. We're going to have to talk a little strategy here. And then for Vegas, for those that, and it's not going to be easy anyway for him, but remember, short passes to Amir Abdullah can translate into success. And we have to see what the health is of both Mattison and Zamir White. More Mattison, but Amir Abdullah can still be involved. Quarterback issues as well, because you're seeing O'Connell practice, but at the same time, it's not going to be him. Likely, maybe it is, but this is a Friday game. This is what we have to watch out for. We've got some injuries right here. Will be Ritter, will be O'Connell. I mean, we'll have to see if he can practice a little bit more in the next day or so. But this run game situation is the bigger issue here, because if there's someone you could put in your flex like an Amir Abdullah once again, that'd be great, because we can assume, we're not going to assume, but let's just say the Chiefs' offense is humming. Then Vegas, I mean, they're going to have to throw anyway. They need help. They don't have a lot of weapons to begin with. It's not like, let's be honest, it's not like they were really focused on utilizing that rushing attack. They see what they have. They don't have much there. Throwing to Amir Abdullah, that's what's going to keep him valuable in this game. Part of me wants to say he's flex viable even if the other two are in. He should be. Short passes, a security blanket, I think that's fine for a little bit of a colder quarterback. So we've got 4 games between Thursday and Friday. So make an alarm, set an alarm both days. Make sure you're setting your lineups. Ray Flowers is actually going to have Fantasy Sports Daily tomorrow, a 30-minute power edition leading right up to Chicago, Detroit. So he'll be able to help you out with any last-minute lineup decisions, as we all are in our Fantasy Guru Discord channels too. Big week, no buys. Everybody is playing. So that's what we're going to be watching out for those 4 games. It's one thing where you have teams that aren't dealing with these kind of really questionable. It's one thing when, okay, this guy like CeeDee Lamb, limited. Okay, we know CeeDee Lamb's going to play. There are real questionable players in these teams. So you got to stay connected. You can't disconnect because of the holidays. You can have a holiday mindset, but keep something in the back of your mind that you've invested this much in your fantasy football lineups. You've gone this far. You've got playoffs to clinch at this point. For a lot of our leagues, it's week 13 this week, week 14, and then that's it. That's it. Some more of us, it's these next 3 weeks, and then the semifinal. And for those that play week 18, good luck with that. But this is that time. This is crunch time. This is playoff clinching time. That's why we got to stay intact and go over all of these injuries. Josh Downs, this is going to be an interesting one for maybe someone who's looking for a receiver. I know that we really, for the most part, it's hard to really like what's going on in Indy. I mean, as someone who has multiple shares of Jonathan Taylor, this really sucks. It's bad. was talking to my buddy James Coe on Sirius XM, which, by the way, you can hear Fantasy Football Post Game every Sunday from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern on Sirius XM Channel 87, reacting to everything that went on during the day in the NFL. But I was really pissed off about this because he's not doing anything. Is it the way he's lining up? We saw a couple weeks ago Anthony Richardson vulturing a couple of touchdowns, running in two, and that's going to continue to hurt this guy, and they're not throwing to him. And now you got Josh Downs, who's going to be out. So all of a sudden, things are opening up a little bit. You got Pittman there, but then you've got Alec Pierce, you got Adonai Mitchell, the rookie. Mitchell, I feel like when we saw Pierce go deep too, both of those guys now become more valuable. But I am very concerned regarding Jonathan Taylor because it is frustrating. I mean, for those that drafted Anthony Richardson, also very frustrating. But man, Jonathan Taylor has been brutal these last few weeks. Amon-Ra St. Brown, by the way, for the Thursday, I didn't even mention Amon-Ra St. Brown, but he's been nursing a knee injury. So we're going to have to just make sure that he is good to go. Brock Purdy, Trevor Lawrence with their shoulders. That we're going to have to keep an eye on for those, especially for Brock Purdy. Here's an interesting one. Breece Hall, the early reports are that he should play, but he's not practicing. At least he's not going to practice today. And that's where, for all of you out there that are looking for running back help, Braylon Allen out there, I could see maybe why he wouldn't be. Yeah, he gets a couple of carries, okay. It's not like he's on the field all the time. I was looking at the snap counts a little bit earlier. Not on the field a lot. Gets a couple of carries. He could be in line for volume. And that's something that if he's out there in your leagues, you should consider picking him up at this point as a stash. The Commanders, this is one that's going to be interesting because you're dealing with Brian Robinson, the ankle who left the game multiple times, and then Austin Eckler with that nasty concussion. Neither, at least in the last hour that I checked, have been ruled out just yet. But you got to start thinking who's up next because to me, it would be very surprising to see Eckler play. Robinson's been banged up the last number of weeks and had to leave the game twice. So if he doesn't play it's either going to be one of Chris Rodriguez or Jeremy McNichols. And to me, we're going to have to figure out who's going to get the majority of those carries, but that's where you can look to stash one of them for a minute. That's how we look because, again, with Austin Eckler, we've seen concussions keep players out multiple weeks. Although the Commanders, I am 99% sure that they have a bye coming up, and they do in Week 14. So that's right, in Week 14, we have another 6 on bye, including the Colts, the Broncos, the Patriots, the Commanders, the Ravens, and the Texans. So you got a few good teams in that mix right there that you're going to have to make up for. And you'll have rotational spots there. Because let's say you pick up a Pierce or a Mitchell from Indy or a McNichols or a Rodriguez. So they do have that bye. So that's where you're looking at maybe a 1-week rental, if that. But at this point, you got to go all in. You need that volume. A lot of injuries at this time of year. Look at what we're dealing with the first 4 matchups alone. So those are a few injuries that you should watch out for. I will have a full injury report, offense and defense, and the fantasy impact of all the teams playing on Sunday and Monday. So what I'm going to do is I am instead, because it's going to be coming out on Friday in the late afternoon, I'm going to be omitting the Raiders and Chiefs. So just keep track of that. But we've got shows that are going to help you set your lineups. We've got Discord as well at fantasyguru.com. All right, let's talk a little bit, for just a little bit, before Rich Maletto stops by, about NBA here. Because here's what we're looking at. These are a few players of focus that I'm probably going to be writing up about. Cards subject to change right there. But I also want to once again show you guys these awesome NBA tools. I can't stressed this enough how good these tools are, and they've been fun. Get rid of this for a second. So with that, for those that don't know, our CEO, Rob Brink, has been utilizing his model different ways, coming up with different ways where we can succeed in the NBA. The NBA is very difficult to track on a day-by-day basis because of things like injuries. All of a sudden, you have 3 players being ruled out. The league's tried to maintain control of that, but they can only do it so much. And it's not like they have to tell us that, hey, this team asked that this player get an exemption from the game a week out. No, they're going to let us know that day, maybe the day before if we're lucky. So a few of these tools here that are going to update automatically the ones above the dotted line. So the one below the dotted line, the DFS NBA projections and ownership, will give you the projections that we have in this model and the ownership. However, it's the one thing that doesn't update automatically. So that's where you're going to have to make sure you check the timestamp on that from an ownership standpoint. But these other 4 tools that you see are going to be helpful and update. You don't even have to refresh your screen. So the Delta Force tool, go over these very quickly. And then I'll bring it up, but if you have any questions about the tools, you can hit me up at Fensty _ in the Discord for these NBA tools. Delta Force tool, it shows ceilings of players, which players are likely to have a bigger ceiling, minutes, production, because another teammate is out. So this is where you can find your value options. You look to the right of the analytic, because you'll see the Delta Force in green. You look to the right of it, and you'll see the projections and the essential return on investment for the player. So we're always looking in DFS NBA for a 5x return. To me, that's a successful play. When I give my core 4s, I love to look for 5x or higher. To me, that's a win for the play, no matter what price. And so to us, that's good value hitting right there. When we get the 8x and stuff, then we're roses. We're loving it. We're probably winning our contest. But we want a minimum of a 5x return on these sites for these players. This tool, the Delta Force, tells us which players will have higher ceilings. It updates, though. And on a 14-game slate, I'm already seeing these injuries for this slate, and I'm seeing more pop up. People want to start their Thanksgiving a little bit early by not playing, for instance, or maybe they sell. I don't know. All of a sudden, a lot of players are questionable. So this is where you can't just check it once at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. DFS NBA is a very focused sport because of these injuries and impact and thinking how ownership is going to change. We found out late yesterday that Giannis Antetokounmpo, after being probable all day, an hour or so before we find out he's all of a sudden questionable, 20, 30 minutes later, we find out that he's out. Okay, that changes everything. Everyone's in the Discord. Where's the ownership going to go? And I thought, okay, another high price setter, they're going to go Wembanyama likely now. Anthony Davis, I wanted to stay on Anthony Davis, though, which is who I was on. Thought the ceiling was high. The Suns, Yusuf Nurkic, like in the movie Space Jam. I don't know what happened to the guy. I personally, I'm not a doctor. I don't think he's healthy. I don't think he's 100%. He's not moving the same way. He's not playing as aggressive. I don't know if maybe there's a lower body injury that's taking away his power, but this is a Monstars taking the talent away situation from Space Jam, because this guy was a good defender a year ago, and now he's forfeiting in the post. And I don't understand why. Very frustrating, I'm sure, if you're a Suns fan and you're watching that. But the bottom line is, that's why these tools exist, because of situations like that will frequently come up and change our entire strategy. Maybe not the core 4, but the strategy beyond the core 4. Totals projections for those wagerers out there that want to bet on the totals. The model, this is kind of the original model analytic right here, where you go to this page here and all the links are right there, all in our data section. Data, basketball, NBA, boom, you're there. And you'll see them all pop up. The totals projections, naturally self-explanatory. It'll predict the totals based on the model. We're looking for at least a 3% edge over or under in order to consider betting on that total. So you'll see a lot of expected totals be 8 to 10 points less. If we get that 3 to 4% or beyond, that's a big time green light that we can bet on it. 5%, the model really thinks that there's going to be variance there, but look for a minimum of 3% when looking to bet those totals for the edge right there. Then you have the player props projections, and that is more of the DFS type of model, except this one gives actual stat projections, updates every 10 minutes. You see the timestamp. If there's a player note that's out, you'll see that if the player is questionable or not. It's great. I try to look, if I'm looking on the books, and then I look at our model here for this particular one, and I see, let's say, a 2 to 3 point rebound assist differential, and I'll look up my own stuff and then I'll check it against the model at times. If I see that variance, that's a green light. That's really what I'm looking for. Maybe not always one ahead. So if I'm looking at an assist prop, 4.5, let's just say, is the line, and the model says 4.99 is the projected assist, 5.2, let's just say. Okay, not saying I wouldn't bet on it, but I want to do a little bit more work. But if I'm thinking, okay, 4.5 assist line, and the model thinks, okay, 6.3 assists is the projection, and I'm looking for 5, I'm more likely then to place that bet. I'm looking for a little bit more of an edge rather than just 0.5 to 1. I'm looking for a little bit more of a cushion when I'm looking at my bets up against the model. So that's why we have these tools. The final tool that we'll talk about is the NBA AI projections model at the top. That will give DFS for FanDuel or DraftKings. You can toggle between the tabs, and it updates every 10 minutes or so. So those injuries coming out, you need to give it more time. A lot of those questionable players that had been out, their minutes will go up a little bit, but not the full way like they're playing until they're confirmed in. So when you see those questionable players and you're like, Jared Allen, 19 minutes. Well, maybe Jared Allen had been out the last 2 games and he's questionable. So the model picks up that Jared Allen could be in and gives the potential impact, but we don't know if Jared Allen's going to play at that point. So those are things we're going to have to watch out for, and that's why we have Discord every single hour on the hour when it comes to the NBA and making sure that your lineups are set. We're building with you, and we're also doing Watch Along Wednesday as well in the DFS NBA Discord. I'll be in there tonight. I know it's a lot of high school reunions tonight, but I'll be in there hanging out with all of you. And when I'm hanging out with all of you guys in the Discord, I'm giving my game notes. I'm talking to you about what I'm seeing in these games that we can look for in betting in the future. It's a great, great time in the DFS NBA Discord after lineup building. 7 p.m. I'm probably going to take it from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Unless I get a full crowd, then we'll keep the party going another hour till 10 p.m. Eastern. So those are some of the tools right there for NBA. Rich Maletto going to stop by here in just a minute. Want to also make sure everybody has a great and happy Thanksgiving. I mean, you all work hard at this point. So just take some time here for those that play NBA too and just enjoy. Sometimes it's like, you know, Fensty, any NBA. If there are no NBA games, we're just going to enjoy. We're going to have a great time. And Friday comes back. We've got more games coming at you and more action. The bets continue and the DFS as well. Now, the coup de grace, the guard dog of fantasyguru.com. Joining me back in the saddle here is Rich Maletto. Rich, what's going on? How's everything?
Good. Can you hear me okay? Because apparently I left my headset in the car and it's too cold. And so even though it's 90% charged, it's showing no battery life because it's frozen. So
I can hear you, man. Loud and clear. You're good.
All right, good deal. I'm a little worried because I'm normally it's got the mic, the whole deal, and I'm like, I never thought I'd have this problem because I fully charged it last week. But okay, here we are.
Hey man, we keep it rolling, man. We just keep it moving. That's what we do, man. But how's everything, man? You put together, I read on fantasyguru.com, and that is where you can find all of Rich's work at Fantasy Bosco on X2. And Rich, I was reading your keep and cut article, and I got to ask you, man, and I hope if our buddy Mike Dempsey is watching right now, I don't mean any offense or anything, and I'm sure he understands anyway. Can we trust any of these Jacksonville Jaguars, man? Like,
my opinion,
I'm going to make it hard for you. I'm going to make it hard for you. Can we somewhat trust any of these Jaguars besides Evan Ingram?
I was going to say the only one I have any trust in is Evan Ingram. In fact, I've advised a couple of people in Discord, I'm okay getting out of the backfield. It becomes a situation, and I would argue Denver backfield is one like this, potentially the Raiders backfield. At some point, in my opinion, we are better off getting out of the action altogether. I would much rather take a gamble on Bucky Irving, who, look, it's hit and miss. And I know people are going to get enamored with the 150 scrimmage yards last week and all that, but the volume's hit and miss. The problem is, even when there's volume in Jacksonville, even when there's volume in Denver, we're not getting 5 points. I mean, at this point, I have more faith in Nick Chubb, who's averaging this year 3 yards a carry or something like that, than any Jacksonville player not named Evan Ingram. I've been recommending selling Brian Thomas for about a month now, trying to get out of the business of Brian Thomas while prices were up. There's no other receiving option not named Evan Ingram. I have no idea which back is going to get volume which week. There doesn't seem to be a pattern. And even when they get the volume, the moment you think, okay, this is a Bigsby week, we know he's getting carries. Yeah, he gets you 15 carries and 30 yards. And then the following week, they decide to play defense. It's a close game, and we get a little bit of a taste of offensive production. But I got to be honest with you. I want out. I don't want any action.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I know, look, you could say, oh, divisional game coming up and teams get up for a divisional game, but also you can also have them kind of going at each other and the offenses not produce as well. So there's the other way when you think about that too. So that's why you can't always go with, well, a divisional opponent there. This Jaguars team has no direction. Really doesn't. And look, they're not really the only team. Would you say the New York Giants kind of fall into there as well? I mean, we don't even know who's going to be throwing the rock tomorrow. We have no idea still at this point.
If I'm a bet man, I'm putting it on Drew Lock, just throwing it out there.
Yeah, and that was a thing, Rich, because I was talking about how even though it's not a bye-week fiasco like it was last week, like it will be next week, if we have the flexibility, and we should all on our teams, unless you have really short benches, we should all have one rotational spot where we don't have any pressure dropping the player, picking up the player. We can just rotate in and out. But there are still opportunities for us to stash a little bit just in case. The Commanders, unfortunately, aren't a good example of that because they've got the bye coming up in week 14. So you would think that by week 15, the run game should be healthier with Robinson and Eckler. But for this week, you can still find something in McNichols or Rodriguez. Have you thought about that? Because I'm sure they're going to be, for you, when it comes to streaming, I've thought, when it comes to streaming these players for the week, I mean, people are desperate at this point, a lot of injuries. Look at the hellhole we have to deal with injuries this week. Do you have any opinion regarding either of these running backs that we should be stashing just in case one, if not both, of Eckler and Robinson are not active?
Yeah, I mean, look, the last time we saw this, something similar, Chris Rodriguez basically took Brian Robinson's work. Conversely, when we saw Eckler dinged up, we saw McNichols kind of take Eckler's work. It works kind of that way. Now, can we expect the same production? No. The last time we saw Rodriguez get the volume, he only scored you 5-6 points. It wasn't a lot. But he got you those 12, 15 carries, which, look, we're chasing that. If he happens to fall in the end zone, all of a sudden it's a great day for a streaming option, right? And that's kind of true at any of them for the touchdowns. I probably should have talked up McNichols more, but you know me in that article, I'm trying to go like bottom of the barrel. I'm trying to find the stuff that nobody else is pointing to, right? So if I'm an Eckler owner, I have no problem grabbing McNichols, especially if I got an IR spot, because I'm going to use that. Even if I got to drop somebody now, drop the kicker, drop the defense, whatever it is, come Sunday, just have a plan that, hey, I'm going to move Eckler to IR. It's going to free up a spot. I'll go get my defense. I'll go get my kicker. I'll go pick up that running back stash, whatever it may be. And I will say this, If Braylon Allen is out there in any of your leagues, right now, you need to add him to your roster. I grabbed him in 2 leagues where I could. I got rid of a kicker in one of them because I said, I'm hoping so-and-so. I've got 4 players questionable. One of them I'm expecting to be out. So I'll free up that roster space and I'll go back and get the kicker, defense, whatever it was I dropped. Don't do that if you don't have a plan of attack. Like if you're like, I just don't know who to drop. If you do that, make sure you're now working on your plan of attack of what is your drop option. I get, hey, I don't want to miss out on Allen being out there. But in my case, I already know what I'm doing. I know I'm moving a guy to IR. I'm also building a second plan. If for some reason everybody's questionable and I can't move him to IR, which I'd be shocked, I already have another player in mind that I'll drop. So if you're going to do these things, have a backup plan. But right now, it sure sounds very dicey on Breece Hall. And I'd love to have an opportunity to use Braylon Allen as a solo back 1 week.
Yeah, I mean, the early things that I've been reading are that he should be out there, but how much does that change? A lot. He's not practicing today, Breece Hall. So there's obviously some concern there, and against which I'm 99% sure it's Seattle. I mean, that's not a bad matchup for Braylon Allen because they're going to have to move down the field a little bit. And the Jets aren't where, in my opinion, the Jaguars and like the Giants are. They might be 2 steps ahead of them, though, and that's about it there. And that's the divide that we have between these teams that are starting to, I don't like to say necessarily tank, but I just say not care about our fantasy teams and our fantasy sports universe right here.
Let's be honest. Let's put ourselves in NFL coaches and GM shoes, okay?
Sure.
We need to evaluate for next year.
Yes.
It's not like we're going, well, the year's over. We just don't have anything to play for. True, you have nothing to play for this year. However, these coaches, these staffs, they need to understand what they have for next year. Who's going to be worthy of a contract extension? Who's not? What positions do we need to upgrade? What positions do we feel like we have something? We're giving a youthful opportunity, a player of youth, an opportunity to see what they have. You know, do we see Jonathan Brooks the last 2 weeks of the year all of a sudden get high volume while Chubb's rested just because they want to see what they have in Brooks? That's a plausibility. Do we see Derrick Henry getting rested at the end of this year because the rushing title's out of play? The Ravens' playoff spot is secure, no bye in contention. That's a possibility. So, I mean, you know, if you put yourself in these coaches' shoes, I would argue it's not even about tanking. That may be a byproduct, but who cares about the byproduct when your first goal is evaluating, seeing where you're at, and frankly, tanking just means a better draft pick. So what if that's what happens?
Dude, that's going to be so heartbreaking. And I guess it's kind of like if you have Chuba Hubbard, you kind of knew, I don't want to say you knew you're on borrowed time with him because then he gets the freaking extension, man. And that shows me, as we talked about numerous times, that Brooks is going to be slow played into this offense. And that to me is going to continue, except if we reach week 15, week 16, and all of a sudden we don't have this guy that's been producing 15 to 20 fantasy points per week, that is going to suck so much because this isn't a Breece Hall, Braylon Allen situation necessarily. We always talk about handcuffing here at fantasyguru.com, but Jonathan Brooks hasn't been on waivers all year. Everyone's held on to him this entire time. So that you're kind of dead in the water at that point.
Which I did drop him today to add Braylon Allen.
Wow. Okay.
I don't have Chuba in that league.
Okay. Well, whoever has Chuba in Rich's league, you go make that claim right now.
And the reason I made that move is exactly what you said. I don't think over the next 3 to 4 weeks we see that volume anyway. So if somebody wants to roster them right now, there's only 4 teams in this league that's going to make the playoffs. So whoever grabs him, he may not even be worthwhile. Now, will I regret it later? Potentially. But if Breece Allen ends up a little more dinged up, or this gets me into the top seed or whatever it is, I get him playing with fire a little bit. But I'm at the point, Carolina's kind of made their statement. They have faith in Chuba. They're still figuring out what Brooks is. And maybe that does happen week 16, 17, 18. Maybe not. Right? Like maybe they keep Chuba in so they can see how they evaluate. It's a gamble, but if anybody wants to grab him right now and throw him on the back of their bench when everybody's scrambling to get through the bye weeks next week, that's on them. I'll play that fire game because I don't have a bunch of bye week issues in this league for next week, and I'm banking others will. So I may grab him back, but I am not going to miss an opportunity to use Braylon Allen as a solo back. I can't do it. Not when we're guessing what Brooks is going to be. Like I said to someone else, I'm not sure we see more than 50-50 Brooks anyway. Even if they want to evaluate Brooks, I don't know that they sit Chuba unless he's hurt. Because once again, he's a young player, and they need to see how this offense works with Chuba.
Yes, you're not the only one, Rich. You're not the only one making the moves here. DJ Lynch actually saying that he made that move as well. And look, I kind of get it. I've got a few teams that have Khalil Herbert and Audric Estime on the team, and I'm hoping for something, and I'm starting to lose running backs, and there's really nothing out there. It's hard to drop players like that. It absolutely is, but you got to do it sometimes because we're chasing volume now.
I would argue, if anything, and this goes for every site out there, we don't spend enough time discussing focusing drops, smart drops, when to pull the trigger on drops, when to hold. Kimini Vidal is a perfect example. I had him in the Kings Classic until last week. I had bye week issues. I had to do something to get things put together. Should I have dropped Zamir White instead of Vidal? Maybe, but I had Amir Abdullah, so there's a little overlap there. I'm kind of vested in it, even though it's a crappy situation.
You didn't know Dobbins was going to get hurt.
Well, that's what I was getting at. Here's Vidal that's been out the whole time. And I've said I wanted Vidal over Edwards. That's why I held him. But it's hard to hold on to a roster spot for someone that's consistently inactive when you're trying to set a starting lineup, right? So while it pains me that Gary Davenport then picked him up today and I didn't get him back, I'm not mad at myself for that drop. Because to Jeff's point that he said on air too, Vidal's going to be slow played into this.
Right.
As much as all of us don't want Gus Edwards to be the guy.
Oh, I do. I want freaking Gus Edwards to be the guy because I actually originally went in on, I thought Gus Edwards was going to be the guy the whole time. I went in on him everywhere, dropped him in most leagues, except for one where I have a deep bench. And now I got Dobbins on this team, by the way, too. I need Gus Edwards to get 13 carries.
So let me rephrase that. For those that don't have Edwards, right? I know you want Vidal to be the guy, but I think we're foolish if we don't realize and think that Gus Edwards is the guy for at least the next 2 weeks. Vidal is not going to take over this backfield this week or next week. I just don't see it happening. Maybe Vidal makes me eat my words, but we have not seen anything from him that's really popped. And if you go back, we saw something similar. Kendra Miller finally started to pop this year. The limited stuff we've seen prior to that was meh. And that's kind of what we got from Vidal. And honestly, I think we're seeing that a lot from rookies. 6 years ago, I would chase rookies and put them on my roster at running back, knowing that 1, 2, or 3 were going to pop. Now we're seeing these rookies semi-popping halfway through the year or starting to pop at the end of the year. Or I'd argue it's really year 2 that we're starting to see this development happen.
Right.
And I think some of that is it's hard to play fast. It's hard to explain this to people that haven't played football, and I'm not trying to accuse anybody of not playing football. But if you haven't learned the playbook and understand that there's a difference in automatically reacting and doing what you need to do versus thinking before you do it, and the concept, you hear people say the game slowed down or playing fast. When you can play reactionary and everything just kind of happens as you expect it, the game slows down, that's when you start to see success. And we've seen this at all the positions, and I think the rookies have been at a bit of a disadvantage because of how the college game has evolved to such a spread thing. We've seen lack of chemistry with offensive lines, lack of technique with offensive lines, and we've seen the same thing with running backs, particularly with pass blocking. So until those running backs get all that kind of in them, so to speak, I think this is what happens. And Fensty, until 4 or 5 years ago, we had a lot more offseason. We don't anymore.
Right.
So I feel like that time in the offseason where those things really got ingrained into players is gone now. And so we're seeing this. Like, it's something I've actively noticed that rookie running backs are taking a little bit longer to hit. And we need to give some receivers, Cedric Tillman, a little bit of a longer leash as it is. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at, but I digress.
Yeah, I mean, Hal just brings up this question here. He's asking from a stash purpose. Here's the thing, Hal, and Rich, I'll get your opinion on this too. Right now, it's Gus right now. We just don't know the extent of Dobbins' injury. We're all used to J.K. Dobbins getting injured, but we're used to getting injured and being out for 9-10 weeks. You know, it's this is from what we're hearing for now. We don't have an exact timeline. this is 2 to 3 weeks that
Minimum.
we're talking about here. So
Minimal.
I think that's as of now at minimum. Okay, so maybe it is the rest of the fantasy season, but
Well,
I think for now it is Gus Edwards, and that's how you have to play it.
So here's what I've been telling everybody, and we can disagree, Fensty. I'm not going to be upset about this.
Yeah.
They're calling it week to week. That's the newest report on Dobbins. As a general rule for me, week to week means 3-4 weeks minimum. That's what my automatic assumption is. Okay. So I'm thinking we're looking at 4 weeks on this.
By the way, can I just interrupt you? Josh Downs has that same report right now for those that are looking for any potential spark in Indy. If you could say that, they have their bye week 14.
So that's one of them. So that's one of them, right? So that's how I approach it. I'm no doctor, but that as a general rule is how my approach has been. Day to day usually means a couple of weeks for me. So I'm assuming 3 to 4 weeks, all right? I don't think Vidal's going to get thrown in. That's not the hardball way. He's going to have to earn his way. And we saw that. We'll see 3 touches. We'll see 5 touches. We'll see 8 touches. And I don't want to discredit Hassan Haskins. He flashed. So would I be shocked to see a 12-carry Gus Edwards, short yardage, and Haskins getting 5-6 carries and passing down work? Would not shock me at all, with Vidal not getting much. I'm telling everybody I don't have faith in Gus Edwards. He looks like he's running in concrete to me. If I don't have Dobbins, which if I had Dobbins, Gus, you kind of need, or have some other streaming or backup option, I'm grabbing Vidal, hoping that maybe he pops for the fantasy playoffs. But I've told everybody this. This is a gamble, and one that I am not worried about being wrong on. I have no problem going, I grabbed him, I swung at the fences, and I missed. If you have issues with that, don't do this move. But that has been my approach. I'm grabbing Vidal and hoping that, and that's why I wanted him back in the Kings Classic. I'm on the cusp of a playoff run and hoping he might be there.
Let me throw this little tidbit out there too. I just checked this while you were talking. Hassan Haskins was on the field in week 12 for 45% of the snaps. Gus Edwards, 23%.
Wow.
Look, you got to kind of make a move at that point. Your player just got hurt. You're in scramble mode. That, though, stands out there that, maybe Haskins will see a little bit more love, though. And yes, we know that how. We know he's not going to be more than an RB3.
No, but the thing is we have to be willing to understand, as much as we all want Vidal to be something.
Right.
Haskins has earned the spot ahead of him all year.
By the way, you're talking about stashing too, Rich. It's not like we have 10 weeks to figure.
No, we got 4.
No, but think about it. If you're on the cusp of making the playoffs, you're not locked into a seed. You've got 2.
Right.
You can't think, for the semifinals, will Kamani Vidal be able? No, F that. No,
you're right.
Thinking these next 2 weeks. What's a stash at this point?
We don't have the luxury of stashing. Like I said, if you're talking about it's the 4th, 5th running back on your roster and you don't plan on using them, I get it. Like I said, I'll swing and miss and be okay with it. If you're like, crap, I need bodies, Chris Rodriguez, Jeremy McNichols, Braylon Allen, Bucky Irving, Ray Davis, those are your stashes.
Yes.
And they're playing. In a pinch, you're only going to get 3 to 5 points on a bad week. But in a pinch, you can put them in there and go, I'm rolling the dice, hoping for 10 to 15, and that's plausible. But Vidal at this point, look, Jeff, I think, said it best on air yesterday. Yeah, he likes him more. Yeah, he'll add him. But, folks, it's based on maybe he's something for us in the playoffs. That's literally where we're at. Maybe for the playoffs. So to Fensty's point, you can't do anything in the playoffs if you don't get to the playoffs.
Right.
Which is why I turned around and said, screw you, Brooks, I'm getting Allen. Because I'm on the cusp. I'm on 4th right. I have the most points, but I'm in 4th. Well, guess what? That win this week matters. That would basically be a shoe-in at that point. And I've got injuries. I got Dobbins. I got Montgomery. I got guys hurt. So I better find a body, and I'm not going to waste time on it.
Yes. By the way, Hal, congratulations on making the playoffs. And to everybody out there who's already clinched, congratulations. But don't go to sleep for the next few weeks. That's the worst thing you can do. You're in maintenance mode right now. You're in maintenance mode. Back in the day, I was part of, I mentioned this at the top of the show. I'm not someone, Rich, that when you look at them, looks like they've missed a meal. But way back in the day, when I was on Weight Watchers, you get to your goal weight, right? And then it's like, okay, well, now what do you do? Now it's maintenance. Now it's the harder part because now you got to keep it off. For you right now, it's maintain mode, not, I'm just going to put my legs up and not even focus on the team for the next few weeks. I'm good. And that's how you lose.
Can I make a suggestion for people in those situations?
Yes.
Don't get out of practice. Whatever routine you have for setting lineups, looking at waivers, executing waivers, all the etc., don't change. Do not stop doing everything you've done to this point. Set lineups still. And I'm including when you're in that first round by the playoffs. Set lineups still. Do all the things you do every week to keep that routine consistent in your habit. Because if you don't, you're going to rest on your laurels and you're going to flop into the playoffs and all of a sudden get smacked in the face.
Yeah, that's it. You lose that eye of the tiger. We could all laugh at the Rocky references, but it's freaking true. I've lived my whole life based on the principles of that series. And yeah, Rich too. And with that, it's a never say die attitude. But the worst thing you can do is lose that eye of the tiger, even if you're in the playoffs. Don't go making crazy moves now, but just watch the waiver wire. See if your roster on your bench, your last spot or two, has flexibility. That's what we're talking about.
And don't fret about the blocking. I am not a big blocking guy. In my opinion, when you go block, you're playing with karma. There are so many options on the waiver wires. You think you're targeting the guy they want, the one and only one they want, and you force them to pick something else. And mark my words, they're end up going to have the better player in the deal if you would have just let them have the crappy player or the first player you thought they wanted anyway. I firmly believe that. People get upset because I get it. We want to do everything. I'm all about being cutthroat, but don't piss off the fantasy gods. Don't fight with karma. Take care of your house first. Clean your house first. Prepare your house first. Let them worry about their mess.
Rich, let's talk a few streamers before we say so long to everybody out there. And let's start with the quarterback spot. A few weeks ago, you gave us Herbert, and that's been working out really well here. Now, no buys here, a lot more pressure for production. Who are a few quarterbacks that might still be out there on waivers that you would stream for week 13?
So the couple of quarterbacks I got listed in the article, I briefly list Bryce Young. Don't love it, but if you need 13 points, that's about what he's getting you lately. It's not the goose egg we're used to seeing. So there is some hope there. Derek Carr, ironically, has been an 18, 20-point guy. As atrocious as that team has looked, he has actually been 15, 20 points almost every week except for like 2. Like, it blew my mind. Not a bad matchup with the Buccaneers. Division game could go either way, so I don't mind that play. Cooper Rush has actually scored some points. I don't love it, but it's out there. I don't know that I'd want to go to Drew Lock if Maletto is out. I think I'd rather see it and cheer for Neighbors for that point,
At that point, Rich, I'd rather go Cooper Rush. If
I would agree.
It really come down to that.
I would agree. And I apologize. I'm forgetting the middle quarterback. I went Carr, somebody, and Rush. And the middle quarterback is Will Levis.
Okay.
Will Levis. And I've been pushing him a little bit. He also has been basically 15, 18 plus points a week since he came back from injury. This offense has looked better. New coaching staff, all of that, it sure appears to me they're finally starting to gel. There's some chemistry with Levis and Ridley. Westbrook Akine has filled in admirably as a second receiver, is getting the second most targets, second routes run. He's mentioned in the receiver streamers. Chiggy showed out a little bit last week. We got a flash of that. Pollard, when he's been given, honestly, they need to make sure Pollard is playing 70, 80% of the snaps and let him rest with Spears. Otherwise, Spears hasn't done much and Pollard's been all the production. So I like what they're doing there. So those are kind of the quarterbacks I'm looking at. And to be frank, look, if Herbert's out there, Nix is out there, Maye is out there, grab those guys, ride them.
Rich, what do you think about this one from Keith, this question here? Because he's wondering, do I flex Swift or Taysom Hill? Because, man, DeAndre Swift has a very tough matchup here. And we've seen Taysom Hill do something here a lot. and you know how much he could be utilized here. Where do you stand? Because, I mean, I think we know who has the bigger ceiling, but do we go safety and knowing that Swift should still get the volume in a very difficult matchup?
I got to go Swift, man. I chase the volume. I want to caution everybody that one, that was a career day for Hill. It was outside of quarterback. It was the most touches he's ever had. And I want to caution everybody, it was three big rushes. That's literally what his game was three big rushes. The passing game work was higher volume than normal and was what, 8 for 50 yards, I think, 7 for 50 yards. So it was higher volume in the passing game. But that again was kind of fluky. I I don't trust it, Fensty. I don't want to have recency bias. And the thing is honestly, I'm expecting Swift to do more work this week in the passing game anyway. If you look at the last couple of weeks, the volume's been there because he's getting passing game work. And I don't think that changes this week. So for me, I chase consistent floors and head to head. It's just my nature. That's how I play the game, how I've consistently played the game. I love the swing and the fences here and there, but if I'm going to start a roster, I'm doing what he's doing. I'm benching Hill, and if Hill goes off, Hill goes off. I'm still not regretting the decision.
Rich, what about defenses? We always talk about a defense or two to stream here. Which ones do you like for the week?
You know, ironically, I kind of like the Buccaneers a little bit, right? You know, they're facing a beat up Saints team, even though I talked up Derek Carr, but I mean that's one. Um, the Giants. I think the Giants might be one of the best streaming defenses of the week, man. We talk about the Giants all the time for streaming. They consistently keep scoring that 7-10 points area. They consistently get you 3 to 4 sacks. And they're playing a Cowboys team that doesn't look good.
Yeah.
So I I kind of like the Giants this week, man.
It's
Is my
weird.
top stream.
We're saying on one hand, stream Cooper Rush, and then
I
on the
know.
other, start the Giants defense.
Well, I mean, and we did the same thing with the Saints and Carr, right? And here's the
right,
deal:
right.
all the defenses I target are always based on, and really, I think most people do. We try to find them based on poor quarterback play, young quarterback play. Targeting the Titans this week is probably not a bad bet. Will Levis is good for an interception. I'm trying to think, is that the Dolphins? I believe the Dolphins played the Titans this week. Or was that last week? I may be getting the two confused. So the Titans matchup is one. Cooper Rush is kind of meh at quarterback, and the Giants defense has been better than people think, hence the lean there. The Buccaneers have been very up and down on defense. The Saints offensive line is beat up, hence the lean there. You know, you could argue with the Browns injuries at offensive line, that's a good one to target. Winston's probably good for an interception as well. You know, so those are kind of the matchups. And again, you know, you've pointed this out, especially with defenses, the ownership is all over the place. The Vikings are owned in 80, or Denver's owned in 88% of leagues, but you may find them available in your league, right? Like, so go get Denver, who does play Cleveland this week, right? So, but those are kind of the defenses I'm looking at.
All right, a couple more questions we'll just answer quickly, both on Juwan Jennings. First, Jennings or DJ Moore here after what we saw from DJ Moore last week?
If Braylon Allen's the QB, give me more. Or Brandon Allen.
Brandon Allen.
If Purdy is back, I'm all in on Jennings.
Yep. And then Jennings or Garrett Wilson from KJ?
I'm on Garrett Wilson.
Right.
Jennings is fine. Brandon Allen was okay, but until Purdy gets back, Kittle, CMC, Jennings is a wide receiver 2-3 at this point. Then Debo's more like a 3. I want Purdy back before I have faith in this offense. And I think Jeff made that comment on air. There's a bunch of backup quarterbacks in the league that probably are better than guys starting right now, like Brandon Allen, like Cooper Rush.
What Rich is referring to is the Elite Sports Show on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Jeff hosts that Monday through Friday. This stream, noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. Ray Flowers will have a special 30-minute stream for you tomorrow, leading right up to the start of Lions and Bears. Give Rich Maletto a follow at Fantasy Bosco. You can find all of his work at fantasyguru.com. Rich, thank you so much again for joining me, and happy Thanksgiving to you and the family.
Happy Thanksgiving. Everybody be safe.
Yes, always be safe. That's something Grandma Fensty always says that. To everybody else out there, be safe. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Have a great Thursday. We'll be back tomorrow, noon Eastern, for a 30-minute stream hosted by Ray Flowers. Same time, same channel, same place, same domination right here on the Elite Plus Network, powered by fantasyguru.com. This is Fantasy Sports Daily.